Hello, Alex Sanfilippo here. Today, I'm going to quickly run through the entire Actively Established podcast report from February 2024. This is something I'm going to start doing every month, and I'm going to put it on the podcast in the future and everything like that. But for this first one, I'm just going to go ahead and share it and go through it all one thing at a time. So first off, this is thanks to Rifonic and Podmatch. We worked together to get the data together and to figure out how it all works. And this is all based on independent interview-based shows. So none of the big names, and also not people that are doing like true crime and stuff like that, which there's totally nothing against. Just saying that we wanted to really narrow it down to a specific demographic. So I'm going to go through the kind of the top line stuff here, and I'll be moving myself around a lot. So here we go, right? You can see me dance around the screen a little bit here. So this first thing here, going through the overall industry buzz. When you go to Google Trends, you can see that it is podcasting is at, I consider it high. Anything over 90% is very high. And it's rare to see that, but I'm glad to see podcasting at this level because it went up 13% since last month. Podcaster health is low, and I'll get into that in a little bit here. And I do encourage you to check this out by visiting the URL for this, and I'll have that in the what's it called description below. Listenership health is high. There are a lot of listeners. It is growing, but not as much as it has in the past, at least from what we can see in the data. But I have to say the data is a little bit outdated. And I have all the sources at the bottom for where we get this information from. So I'll try to make this not boring by not going into that. But I encourage you to look at that. I'm waiting for new data to come out because I do think that although it's still growing, I think it's actually more than what's being reported here. And then the podcasting opportunity is very high. I will get into that because that is tied to the health. And I think this is the best time to start a podcast there has ever been. All right, move myself around again. Next up is the industry totals. This number here is interesting to me. This is the total number of podcasts, and this is based on Apple Podcast. I look at Apple as the golden standard because they do have the strictest requirements of having what is considered quote unquote a podcast. So this is how many Apple podcasts there are right now. This is how many are active. Now, the interesting thing is I keep on thinking I'm going to have the day show up that I can say, congrats, we have 3 million podcasts in total now, right? I have been, the number of climb has slowed so much. I mean, look at the growth just month over month. This used to be full percent, sometimes 3-4% growth month over month. And now it's just slowing. And obviously the law of diminishing return is a thing, but it's really slowing the amount of people even launching podcasts. And look how many are active. I mean, how crazy is that? So only 12.9% of podcasts are active. And in 2020, there was over 300,000 more podcasts were active at that point. So, I mean, look at this chart, right? It's pretty crazy. The very small slice of the pie, I'd be very unhappy if that was my slice, right? Is what's active. So anyway, here's the numbers and stuff like that. The active podcast has dropped a little bit. That's going back to this podcaster health being low. That's where I can see that really taking effect. All right. So here we go. Possible future actively established podcast. We define, which again, all the data is below, but this is based on reaching 100 episodes of your interview based podcast, being an independent podcaster. That's where we consider becoming actively established because for whatever reason, the data shows that's how long it takes to really break through and have just an outstanding podcast. And you can do it in shorter time. You can do it in more time as well. But that's kind of like the middle ground, the standard, if you will. So again, this is how many total independent podcasters fall within this criteria, just under 500,000. But this are only 313,000 that are active. So if I look at this, the total number has climbed a little bit. Again, that's slowing quite a bit. But the number that are active has dropped quite a bit, I'd say. And so only 22% of possible future actively established podcasts are active. So only 22% are even in the ballpark of ever making it as a podcaster. And it's already a very small number. So again, this is a little bit more in the pie, but still not great, right? Next up here, we're going to look at, I'm going to move myself around here. This is the actual actively established podcast. This is what we look at. These are the podcasts that we consider quote unquote as independents that have made it. They've turned it into something amazing, or it is very, very close to just kind of breaking that threshold. So the interesting thing is, see here, that we had some growth, and in 1 month we had like a lot of growth. And I don't really even know. We never figured out what that was attributed to, but we had a lot of growth. And you can kind of see it's been about the same, but now it kind of disappeared in January, and then in February again, the number is starting to drop back down. And so that's really not a lot, right? And when you look at the data from a listenership standpoint, from a monetization standpoint, 90% of the influence is made up among this group of podcasters. So it's only 7.5% of all independent podcasters, or out of all podcasts, 1.27%. So again, you can kind of see where it's slowing a little bit here, but that's it. All the influence is among that group. And I could share a lot on that topic, but I'm going to digress, and maybe I'll do another video. I will do another video explaining it further in the future. So another really small slice of the pie, right? Chances of making it as a podcaster. So 8 episodes, you have 43.5% chance of making it. 50 episodes, which basically we kind of calculate the data as one episode per week because that's kind of the average, right? So in the standard, there's really a lot of good that can happen there. To make it to the 1 year mark of your show, you have under a 10% chance. To make it to what we consider the actively established podcast line, like this is where meaningful traction starts to take place, you have under a 6% chance of making it. To 200 episodes, less than 3%. And then it climbs back up at 300. And I believe it seems weird, right? But the reason I think people make it to 300 is because these were podcasts that were prior to 2020, if you think about the date. And back then, the tools were not what they are now. So these people had to build out the true discipline it takes to be a good podcaster. This number will start to drop as time goes on. But the reality is, people that were pre-COVID seem to make it more than people that were post-COVID. And that's why that number looks like that. Quick side note here. And we actually just got featured by this. And give me a second here. We got featured quoting this, but you are 4 times more likely to make it as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, than you are as a podcaster based on the data. And so my suggestion, and what we got quoted for, is I say, don't start a podcast, just stop if you're trying to make money and go start a business, because you're 4 times more likely to do it that way. So you have to really want a podcast to do it well. But the opportunity in podcasting will climb, and I'll have videos on that in the future, because I think, anyway, I'm going to leave that alone, but I think that podcasting will become a very easy, very simple, not easy business model that just having a podcast will make you a full-time income pretty easily without even monetizing it directly. And I'll share that later. This is something I'm going to get into as well in a little bit here on another video, but just quickly to know, this is how many podcasts at any given time. And this is very early data. It's hard to calculate this right now, but we're estimating at any given time, any given day, there's 313,000 podcasts right now that are looking for guests. And right now we're seeing that there's probably just over 2.5 million people looking to be a guest on a podcast on any given day. So that's 23 guests to every one podcast at any given time. Not like over a period of time, on that one day. That's how many people are looking to be a guest on all different kinds of podcasts. It's pretty scary. And again, I have more videos on really why I think that is the only thing that will possibly destroy the podcasting industry. But we did internally, I'm thankful, already discover the solution for it, which also leads to a full-time income for podcasters. So it's going to be okay. I believe I just have to be able to spread the word. So help me with that, please. All right. Podcasting industry averages. This is looking at your podcast versus industry averages. This is very interesting data. I'm going to say this, and you can quote me on this. There are no such thing as big podcasts. That is not a thing. There are about 1,500 shows that are big podcasts. They're all celebrities. They're all big companies. They're all major CEOs that have massive budgets. There's about 1,500 shows that are big. The rest of them are not big. And that's okay, because our model of what big is we think big numbers because of social media. But the reality is, what I'm about to explain is big as well. Top 1% podcast. If you have this many downloads in the first 7 days, about 5,000 people listening to it. Here's the thing. Again, that doesn't sound like a lot, but podcast listeners are the same as people sitting in seats at a conference. If you're a public speaker or you've been to a conference, when's the last time you've been on a stage or in the audience with a room with 5,000 people in it? Probably hasn't happened, maybe ever. And if it has been a while. Let's put it that way, right? Here's the thing. That's huge. So the numbers that we're conditioned by are social media, where I've got 50,000 people watching this video. 50,000 people didn't watch your video. I'm sorry. Maybe 1,000 did at most, right? People scroll past it, but it counts as engagement. This is very different than that. So again, podcast listenership is the same, as valuable, if not more valuable, than someone sitting in a seat. So there's no such thing as a big podcast from a conventional number standpoint, but these numbers are very comforting. 5,000 people listening the first 7 days, you have a top 1% podcast. If you're in the top 5%, if you have just over 1,100, top 10%, 480. That's not huge, right? But again, if there was 480 people sitting in seats listening to you talk, you'd show up there every day of the week to have them listen to you, right? Top 25% and even top 50%, 31. But same thing, if there's 31 people sitting in a room, you're probably going to be willing to go there to speak. So we have to really recondition ourselves on the numbers, if you will, right? That it's really important. And thanks, Buzzsprout, for putting this together each month. If you've not taken the Podscore quiz, I recommend you do that. I'll let you look at this on your own. I'll link to it in the description. And then I also have the hosts and providers ranked by their ability to serve independent podcasters. This is how well they help podcasters. Let's put it that way. And so this changes every month, so you can check that out as well. And at the bottom here, I've got all the data. And my goal is to keep this under 10 minutes, which gives me 15 seconds left. Thank you so much for checking this out. Remember that podcasting is designed to serve the one person who needs you most. Get out there and serve, be encouraged by this data, and stay in the loop with what's going on with podcasting. And thank you so much for checking this out. Appreciate you.